someone spectacular for you right now. This gentleman has been quite special in my life. I do remember he was on the board of directors of Religious Science International and became the president of the board of directors of Religious Science International and was the president when I became a board member. And I can still clearly remember that I was absolutely terrified of him. I've since overcome that. I have since found that I can call him my friend. I have found that in times of challenge for me, when I needed love and cuddles and kisses, I went somewhere else. And when I needed a 2x4 upside of the head, I went to this gentleman. And then was surprised to find that I got a little love as well. This gentleman has just celebrated his 20th anniversary as the pastor of the church that he founded. And he has also now retired from that church. And of course, you know who I'm talking about. He served Religious Science International not only on the board of directors and as the president, but also on the board of education for 10 years. He has 2 terrific books in the bookstore. If you haven't been there, I urge you to do that. He has a book called The Legacy of Truth and another one called You Are the Power, and numerous booklets and numerous cassette tapes. He's quite prolific, right to the point. I think a wonderful, clear, witty speaker. I'm very privileged to introduce him to you this evening. Please help me to welcome Dr. Kennedy Schultz.
Thank you. Thank you all very, very, very much, and thank you, Dr. Pierce, for a really wonderful introduction. I haven't brought my 2x4 with me, so you all will be perfectly safe this evening. I want to talk to you this evening about what I call the exceptional life, because I think that is what people who are attracted to this wonderful teaching of ours are looking for. The exceptional life, leading life in an exceptional way. Now, we may not know that when we come here. When we come here, we may be drawn to this teaching in search of a way to heal ourselves in body or in finances, or we may be working on our career or on our relationships, or we may simply be in search of some peace of mind. Or we may even have been dragged here by some well-meaning friend or relative that can't figure out what the hell else to do with us. You know who you are. Make the best members sometime. But if we develop any kind of abiding interest in what this teaching has to offer us, it is because somewhere along the line, something inside of us senses that there is something more to be had here, and there is something more wanting to come forth from within ourselves. We sense that there is a way, whoever we are, to make a different kind of life, to make a better kind of life than we have so far been willing to settle for. And this is what I call the urging to the exceptional life. Henry David Thoreau observed way back in the 19th century that most people lead lives of quiet desperation. Isn't that chilling? Most people lead lives of quiet desperation, and you know he wasn't talking about stupid people, And he wasn't talking about underprivileged people, and he wasn't talking about unsavory people. He was talking about most people, average people. The average individual lives an entire lifetime in this universe of endless possibility, merely hoping for the best while fearing the worst, and always entirely willing to settle for the mediocre just to keep from getting the worst. The average individual is entirely willing to accept the mediocre as the best he or she can do, and then, having accepted the mediocre, fall right back into the pattern of hoping for the best while fearing the worst all over again, without realizing that the very most that can ever come out of this kind of way of thinking is the mediocre. And this is because the average individual really does not know that his or her thought is creative of their own experience. Most people have heard this expressed one way or another. Most people think it's a cheerful idea, but most people only half believe it. And they find it much easier to go on merely hoping for the best while expecting the worst and, as I said before, celebrating the mediocre. We live in a culture that celebrates the mediocre and counts itself good to be in it, because misery really does love company. And they like to be among other mediocre people because there's so many of them. And there is the belief that there is safety in numbers. But the only thing that being in the midst of numbers like that save us from is the challenge that it takes to lead the exceptional life. Now, Thoreau knew this dynamic very well, because he went on to say, after remarking that most people live lives of quiet desperation, he went on to say that what we call resignation always leads to more desperation. And then he says that it is a characteristic of wisdom not to do desperate things. Meaning, if you're smart, you'll cut that out. That's 20th century Thoreau. And of course, the ultimate act of desperation is settling for less than what we really want and telling ourselves that for some reason or another, it's the best we can do. Now, think of what this must do to your mind and heart over the course of a lifetime, if this keeps going on. Think of what this has to do to your mind and heart, and then you will understand why there is so much depression, why there is so much anxiety, why there is so much unhappiness, resentment, meanness, dissatisfaction in the world. Then you will understand why most people are so prejudiced against their own happiness. They are, you know, prejudiced against their own happiness. You know, the word prejudice means to prejudge, or to make up our minds about something or someone, including ourselves, without considering the whole truth. And people become prejudiced against their own greater possibility long before they turn their mean-spiritedness into prejudice against other people. But Henry David Thoreau goes on to tell us more about this. He says, it is never too late to give up our prejudices. It is never too late to give up our prejudices. So whoever you are, it is never too late to change your life by changing your mind. It is never too late to take exception to what most people think life has to be like, and to turn your life into an experience that is a whole lot better than the one you've been living. Remember, if 1,000,000 people believe a foolish thing, it is still a foolish thing. But the truth is the truth, whether anyone knows it at all. It just sits there and waits for somebody to find it. Now, I think that it is very important to say that when we think of leading an exceptional life, we are not talking about making for ourselves a life that is better than somebody else's, because that is not really the way to make ourselves happy. You and I never have to best anyone in order to make ourselves better people. We are talking here about making a life of our own that is better today than it was yesterday. That's all. We are talking about making a life that takes exception to inferior ideas, meaning ideas and beliefs that have never served us well. It means realizing that these ideas, these prejudices, these notions about ourselves that do not lift us up but rather put us down, are never, 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 never going to work for us, no matter how dear we hold them or how well we defend them. Ideas and beliefs that have kept us from our own greater possibilities for much too long. I'm talking about ideas that tell us that God is anything other than all for us all the time. And I might say all for us all the time. Ideas that tell us that we are ever trapped in the past or barred from a greater future for any reason whatsoever. I'm talking about ideas that tell us that our life is in any way limited because of what other people may think of us, or because of what other people can't or won't give us or do for us. You see, this teaching of ours is not about other people. Oh, is that important to get? This teaching is not about other people. It only works for us when we make it personal to us and keep it that way. Years and years ago, my wonderful teacher, Raymond Charles Barker, wrote a highly successful little booklet. I don't know if it's still in print or not. It was called How to Change Other People. I want to tell you it sold like hotcakes. It sold by the thousands. He never had to promote it. Put it out on the shelf, put it out on the book table, snapped it right up. I can hear them now in the bookstore. Oh, look, Margaret, How to Change Other People. I'll take a dozen of those. Oh, yes. And of course, the readers discovered that the way to change other people is simply to change the way we see them. See? The way we treat them. The way we relate to them. To change ourselves in relationship to them. That's how we change other people. And one of Dr. Barker's favorite themes was the need to change the 10 Commandments so that people might start paying attention to them. He noted that for centuries we have been waving the 10 Commandments at people and telling them what they shouldn't do, as if they didn't know that already. What they shouldn't do. And over the centuries, most people keep right on doing these things anyway. And you know, after all of these years, we have not learned much about how not to do all the lying and stealing and killing and coveting. Now, we've gotten rather good at justifying it for ourselves, and we've gotten superb at condemning it in others. See? Now, Dr. Barker, along with Emmett Fox, by the way, thought that what we should do is turn the Ten Commandments into affirmative statements, see? So that they would be telling people all about the good they could be doing and why they should be doing it, why they ought to be doing it. Give a little incentive with these things. See? So that people would learn something about the profitability of principled behavior. And so that instead of saying, thou shalt not steal, it would say something like, thou shalt always honor all the good other people possess and know that doing so attracts your greater good to you. It does. I'm going to do it then. And instead of saying, thou shalt not kill, we might say, thou shalt honor human life however it appears, and knows that as you do so, your life will grow in every kind of goodness. Oh, I'll do that. And then on top of all this, Dr. Barker expressed what he was trying to get at in an even more exceptional way. He said we should rewrite the first commandment entirely and make it into a very simple statement. And the first commandment would simply be, mind your own business. Thou shalt mind thy own business, because only the way you think and you act and you react is caused to thy experience. And Barker's contention was that if we wrote such a commandment and all the world really obeyed that commandment, we probably wouldn't need the other 9. Because most of the human mischief that occurs in the world comes out of our expecting too much of others and too little of our own sweet selves. Yes. Now, mind you, I am not saying that we don't expect enough for ourselves. I'm saying we do not expect enough of ourselves, of our own God-given ability to know whatever it takes in order to do whatever we must do in order to create the kind of life we really want to live, which includes getting what we want out of life by creating it ourselves. Let me set myself free to create it myself. Thank you. Now, what you and I and every human being truly wants out of life has nothing to do what was on anyone's mind but our own. And getting it has nothing to do with getting anyone else to do anything other than whatever they think they ought to do. It has nothing to do with changing other people's minds or other people's hearts. And I'm not saying that other people's minds and hearts won't change for the better when we're concerned, and it wouldn't be nice if that would happen. But that will only happen when our hearts and minds change for the better as well. See? Now, the average thinker wonders more than he or she affirms. We spend more time wondering than affirming. Yeah. The average thinker is always wondering what to do, where to go, how, why, when, who, oh, God, wonder, oh. The exceptional thinker does not wonder. The exceptional thinker affirms. The exceptional thinker already knows who must do the essential work and does not quarrel with it and does not try to escape from it. The exceptional thinker already knows what to do first and when to do it, and makes it his or her business to come up with how to do it. The exceptional thinker knows that the first thing we do is affirm the rightness of our desire and God's perfect intention to honor and fulfill it. And we affirm it over and over and over again, and we affirm it in the face of failure, and we affirm it in the face of doubt, and we affirm it in the face of fear. That's the very first thing. What's the second thing? It doesn't matter if you don't get the first thing. Doesn't matter. The time to do the first thing is always right now. And the way to learn how to do it well is to listen to the people who know how to do it and to the people who think you can and think you deserve to and have had some success at doing it themselves, and stop listening to people who don't think it can be done, wonder if it could be done, don't think you deserve to do it, and have not much to show for it anyhow. Stop listening to that kind of cant, whether it is coming from dear, dear folks who are in your life right now, or whether it is merely echoing down the halls of your memory of the can'ts and shouldn't and wouldn't and dare not and all that kind of thing. Because the people in your past who have said things like this to you and the people around you now that are saying things like this to you may be very nice, ordinary people. But ordinary people, however nice, will never help us live an exceptional life. The fabulous Dr. Johnny Coleman, pastor of a very large metaphysical church in Chicago, says this. She affirms, I am the thinker thinking the thought that creates the thing. Not, I wonder where I'm going to get from time to time. I am the thinker thinking the thought that creates the thing. This is an exceptional affirmation. The average person says something quite different. The average person says something like, I'm just an ordinary person hoping for the best, wondering if it's okay and who will give it to me and worrying about what I'm going to do when I get it, if I ever do get it. Could I handle it myself? God, what do you think happens to consciousness when you say that? Now, the world is full of people in conflict over all of this. The world is full of people who judge themselves to be ordinary. We're just ordinary people, you know. They want to be ordinary people, but they want to have extraordinary experiences. And you can't do that. And some people will say, oh, Dr. Schultz, all I want out of life are the simple, ordinary things of life. That's all I want. And I always say, that's all you want? Well, let's see. Now, do you want to live a long, happy, healthy life? Oh, yes, I want that. Yes, I do. Well, that's not ordinary. That ain't ordinary. Do you want to be comfortable financially all life long, even into your old age, so that when you're sitting around gumming your rice pudding at 93, and nobody likes you, you'll have enough money in the bank to buy whatever you want and not have to wish for it? Would you like to do that? Oh, yeah, I'd like to do that. That's not ordinary. That is not ordinary. Do you want to have satisfying work where you feel that you're doing something worthwhile and you're producing and you're appreciated? Oh, yes, I've longed for that. That's not ordinary. No. And how about love, dear? Do you want to live through your life with some nice people around you, living in love and joy all life long? Yes, I would. That's not ordinary. Yeah, it's wonderful to want all those things. We should want all those things, But you're not going to get any of those things unless you wake up and realize these are not ordinary things. They're quite extraordinary in this dreary old world of ours. These things do not happen to ordinary people, thinking ordinary thoughts and doing ordinary things. They happen to people who take exception. Exceptional people take exception. They happen to people who take exception to ordinary beliefs, ordinary ideas, ordinary ways of living. Absolutely. Just look at the world around you, and I mean right around you. See? Right around you. Don't project off into the wilderness or to some backward nation on another continent or something like that. Look at the people you know. See? Look back in your own history at the people you have known. And you will find that most of them are really nice, ordinary people. They really are. But most of them have by no means had the good things in their life that in your heart of hearts you desire. I mean, they have not had the kind of health, the kind of wealth, the kind of wonderful work and love that you're after. And there's really no need to dishonor them for that, you understand. But there's also no need to dishonor yourself by imitating them. Yeah. By thinking that's the best you can do too. If it's good enough for my father, it was good enough for me. It ain't good enough for me. No. You know, we honor our past best by creating a good future. We honor our past best by creating a better future. And we help the world around us the most by making a better life for ourselves in that world. See, if some ordinary people never made more out of their lives than the world thought they could, the human race would have extinguished itself a long time ago. It is ordinary people who decide to do extraordinary things that keeps us all afloat, that cements us from generation to generation. Now, this wonderful teaching of ours is an open invitation to ordinary people to learn how to do extraordinary things by becoming exceptional thinkers. By learning how to take exception to the way they have been thinking for perhaps a very long time. Once they see that such thinking has never really been getting them anywhere but around in circles. By taking exception to the way most of the world thinks about life, once they realize it is precisely that kind of thinking that has produced the kind of life that most of the people in the world have settled for. There's a wonderful quote from Taoism that loosely translated says that people, when they encounter the truth about life, Taoism means the truth about life or something close to that, says, when the highest type of men hear Tao, they diligently practice it. When the average type of men hear Tao, they half believe it. When the lowest type of men hear Tao, they laugh at its face. Now, those who know anything about Taoism understand that Lao Tzu is not talking about kinds of individual people when he talks about the highest, the average, and the lowest type. He is talking about states of mind, which are open and optional to us all. And he is saying that when people who are truly looking for truth hear it, they immediately put it to work in their lives. When people who aren't quite sure what they're looking for, but they're looking for something, hear the truth, they dabble in it for a while. but not much. Try a little here and try a little there, but not much more. And when people who are really down on themselves and down on the world hear the truth, they deal with it by scorning it as, too good to be true. Now, I think we need to be perfectly aware that we have people operating at all three of these mindsets in our churches every single Sunday. And we have people operating at all three of these mindsets in this auditorium and on these grounds right now. Which are you? Rhetorical. Please don't tell me. Which are you? And only you can say. And which do you want to be? Now, at this point in time, you may be a true believer who is sitting there seizing on every idea you can recognize as valid, or you may be a dabbler, or you may even be a scorner. But I'll tell you, whichever you are, I'm glad you're here. I'm very glad you're here, and I'm glad you're in one of our churches. And whichever you are, we in this teaching, who know that it is so, are prepared to honor your particular point of view for as long as it is serving you as well as you want to be served. And when it stops doing that, we're still here to invite you to move right along to the next highest level that you can manage. Because, you see, your mind is always free to change for the better. And we want you to know that. Your mind is always free to change for the better, but the truth about life and how to live it more beautifully remains ever constant. It is always the same. It is always for you, whoever you are. And we will always be here telling the truth to the very best of our ability. And we love to tell the truth to you and to ourselves because it is wonderful. And so are you. And so am I. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.